Hello. Good morning. Hello, or good afternoon, I guess. It took me a couple minutes to get going here because YouTube is doing crazy things. They're trying to do this YouTube beta thing for creators, and they kind of, excuse me, force you over into that. And I had to get back to my regular stuff because I can't get the hang of the new stuff yet. But here I am. Hello. Welcome to my live stream. The weather's beautiful here today. Let's see what it's the temperature. Today it is in Bakersfield. Helps if I'm looking at the right city. It's 70 degrees right now. It's really, really pretty out. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous day. Of course, my allergies are in full bloom right now because it's spring, so my eyes are kind of red. Sorry, I have not been crying. It's just my allergies kicking in. So if you're the first time you're visiting my live stream, welcome. I hope I get some new people on here. And my name is Suzanne Bryan. I am a TKGA, that's the Knitting Guild Association, Certified Master Hand Knitter, and I like to share my knitting knowledge with other people. That's what this is all about. And we're currently working on a cardigan, and we're almost done with it. So let's see who's on here. Joan Miller, and let's see. Joan Miller from Kansas City, Sandra Morin from Bakersfield, Carol Brasino, Luana Hendricks from Missouri, Bonnie Davis. She likes my flower pictures for the Space Savers. Wheezy Wheezy from Peterborough, Ontario. Sandra Morin from Texas in San Antonio. Kelly Mycat, hello from rainy New Hampshire. Deborah Cisneros from sunny, yeah, it's pretty sunny in Southern California. Anne Tremoliers from France. Dolise Beeman, she's up in Washington. Francois from Lyon, France. Let's see, Delise Renee, Lisa Quilts a Lot from Brisbane, Australia, Joyce Nugent from Virginia, Cold Metal from Hanover, Germany, Eric Joseph from Belgium, Demetria, Renee, Francois. Can you guys see me now? I got on here a couple minutes late. I hope you can see me now. Shirley from Brooklyn. Denise from Palm Desert, Katharina Continental Combined from Berlin, Amber from Southwest Germany, and on. Yay! So can you guys see me now? Am I alive? Okay. So here's my sweater. You know, I got it blocked. Isn't it pretty? I love it. And this line down the front is where I have reinforced the steek, and I'll show you that in great detail in a few minutes. And but first, before I do that, I'm going to make you wait. There's something else I want to talk about, and that is stitch and row gauge and how they change based upon your needle size. So have you ever had the experience of where you're doing a gauge swatch and you're trying a variety of needles, and you find that when you change from one needle size to another, that your stitch gauge does not change, but your row gauge does. And you think, what's going on here? I want to explain that. So let's say you're using worsted weight yarn and you use a size 7 needle. Your US 7 needle, you're probably going to get about 5 stitches to the inch and 7 rows to the inch. And then you go down to a size 4 needle. You may get 5.5 stitches to the inch, and you'll probably get, like maybe 8 rows to the inch. Then let's say you go to a size 3 needle. You might still get 5.5 stitches. Even if you went to a size 2, 5.5 stitches, you're not going to get any more stitches per inch, but you'll get more and more rows. Have you ever had that? Think about it. Let me hear you. Has anybody had this happen? Huh? I'm making you wait on the steek, huh? Anyway, let me explain to you why that happens. Let's say, have you heard of wraps per inch, right? Let's do a wraps per inch. So this is worsted weight yarn, and I'm just wrapping it around this big knitting needle. When you push it together, it will only go so close together. You can't make it go closer together, right? That's the wraps per inch. And people who do spinning and weaving use this a lot, okay? So there's the wraps per inch for this worsted weight yarn, and you would count those and do an inch and count them. Now think about this. When you're making knit stitches, they go like this, correct? They make these loops. That's a knit stitch, right? And you get more loops across a row, correct? So each loop is 2 pieces of yarn, right? Each stitch is 2 pieces of yarn. So the closest that stitch can get together is the width of those 2 pieces of yarn. The stitch can't get any narrower than the 2 strands next to each other. That's as narrow as that stitch can get per inch. But when you make rows, you only use 1 strand per row, right? So when you stack rows on top of each other, they can keep getting narrower and narrower and narrower because there's only 1 strand per row. Does that make sense? So when you have your stitches, let's do this. We can do that same kind of thing. When you have your stitches, let me make some stitches here. So you have these stitches, I have some stitches, and you push them together. They can only go as close together as the strands will allow them, the width of the strand. Okay, does that make sense? But rows use the same concept. They can only get as close together as the width of the strand, but there's only 1 strand per row. For stitches, there's 2 strands per stitch. So I saw over on my Facebook group the other day that someone was asking, they said they were knitting, I think they were trying to knit socks, and they were using a US 3 needle and getting the correct stitch gauge for the pattern, but not the row gauge. And that's because they probably were using fingering weight yarn, and they probably need to go down to a size 1. Then they will get a smaller stitch gauge, and their row gauge will be okay. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's a visual thing for you to see and think about when you're thinking about stitch gauge and row gauge. So let's, here's my cardigan. I love it. And it fits really good. I blocked it day before yesterday. I've made a video of the blocking. I also have a video on the short rows at the back neck. I have that done. I have this video done, the steeking video, and a video of the Henley. And these will all come out by Friday. I just have editing to do on them, but the filming is done. So here's my yoke blocked. Doesn't it look nicer? Remember when I was worried about how it was all bumpy and lumpy and everything, and how I trusted that it would come out like my swatch, right? I kept comparing it to my swatch, and guess what? It looks just like my swatch. And this is superwash wool. And I did have that issue in blocking of the fabric growing. Wait till you see the blocking video. Be sure to watch it because it is very educational. So here we go. What I did here is I used a crochet reinforcement, which I have a video on this coming out, where I crocheted. It's very hard to see, but there's a very fine line crochet reinforcement on each side of the center stitch of the steek. So the center stitch is being pulled apart by the two pieces of crochet. In this part, there's no changing of colors, and that's the only reinforcement of the steek. These are just plain knitting stitches. Up in here, I did the color work steek, and I reinforced this all the way through here with the crochet. So what the crochet allows you to do is you can actually pull apart, pull on it, and it will separate the stitches in the middle where you need to cut, right between the two. See the dark blue line? There's the crocheted steek. Here's the crocheted reinforcement, The bright dark red there is my cutting line. So I'm going to cut. I'm going to stand up so you can see me cutting, okay? I'm going to start cutting right here. And I'm just cutting right in between my two reinforced. And you can see what I did on the crochet too. I bring it around the corner. See, it's crocheted around the corner. The steek, I bring it around the corner. So you can see that line goes around the corner. I'm not going to be cutting my crocheting. I'm cutting the strands in between. And you need sharp little scissors. And you can see those edges. See, it does not come apart. Nothing's coming out. Can you see it okay? Nothing's coming apart. The edges are very nice. That's what the insides look like. It's not going to fray. It's not going to come apart. I'm going to keep cutting. And then I'll try it on. I'm as excited as you are. I can't wait. I was really tempted to go ahead and finish this sweater before the live stream today, but I thought, nah, cutting the steek would be pretty exciting for everybody. So I thought I would share it with you. Can you hear it? Can you see okay? Oh, hard to see against my red shirt. Let's see. I can have my hand there. How's that work? Can you see it against my hand? Do you see how the stitches pull apart right here? Right here? They just automatically will pull apart there, so you can see exactly where to cut. I'm not pulling on it or anything. They will just pull apart by themselves like that. It's not the knitting coming undone. It's just those crocheted reinforcements pulling it apart. When you do the crochet, use, if you're working with a bulky yarn or a worsted weight yarn, you can still use a fingering weight yarn for the reinforcement. I use the same weight as I knitted this sweater because it's fingering weight. But you don't want to use a crochet reinforcement of a bulky yarn because it just creates too much bulk. You can use a fine yarn. Some people even use lace weight yarn to do the crochet reinforcement. Can you see it okay? I can't wait. I'm almost done. I'm holding this way up in the air so it's up by the camera. Getting down to the last bits. Uh-oh, here it comes. I was going to say oops somewhere, but I forgot, just to scare you. Okay, it is separate. Now, so we can see, it looks nice. There's that little crocheted edge, and it controls the stitches on the edge. Do you see that? There's the inside. It's very, very tidy. And I've never had it come out. You could pull it out, I suppose, with your fingers, sit there and pick on it, but that's the first time putting it on. Yay! I love it. So now what I'm going to do is I've got to put my neck on, which the neck is going to be the same ribbing as the bottom. It just won't be as wide. And then I'll do my button bands. Yay! That was fun, huh? Now, you do not have to do a crochet reinforcement. You can use a sewing machine, and I show that in the video, or you can do nothing. You can do nothing. And it won't come out. You don't need to worry about it. I did block it first. You want to block the garment first, and because that helps the stitches stay. Yes, the birth of a cardigan. Now, here on the pocket, whoops, I'm holding it upside down. Let's get the other pocket. On the pocket, it shows you where my selvage stitches are, okay? So here was my, the steeked edge where I cut my steek, but the steek goes all the way over to this first column of stitches where I combine my pocket, and there's that wonky row on the other side of that. That's where this is my selvage stitch. So in between that and the next one is where I'll be picking up for the button band, so that selvage stitch will fold to the back side. Also, once I've picked up all my stitches, it forces the cut steek to the back edge of the fabric, and it kind of makes a self-lining. If you are concerned about it not staying in place, you can tack it down if you like. You can use a blanket stitch or something. My personal experience is because you have picked up the button band along here, it forces this back like a facing, and it looks nice. And because you do that crocheted reinforcement, it gives it that really nice finished edge. Isn't that pretty? And believe me, it's not going to come out. I could sit there with a tapestry needle and probably pick it out, but even wear and tear, reblocking, it's not going to come out. Oh, that looks pretty too, doesn't it? Now notice when I blocked, I did get some wrinkles in the back, and I need to spritz those with some water and get those out. So what do you think of that, huh? Let's see. Let me go through here and see what your comments are. Okay, let's see. Be sure to give me thumbs up, okay? And invite your friends to watch my videos. They don't have to be knitting the sweater or doing the projects that we're doing if they would like to just learn, because I'm always talking about things that are educational. Let me see if there's any. Remember, if you have a question, put questions in all cap so I can see it. 84 degrees in North Carolina. My goodness, David, that is pretty warm. Is it humid there too? Beach City, Texas. Where is that? Where's Beach City, Texas? In relation to Galveston, where is Beach City, Texas? My son is thinking of moving to the Clear Lake area in Texas. And All I see is a lot of humidity, so I'm curious as to how the livability is there. Okay, let me see. Meg's NJ question: is there a difference between SSK versus slip one, knit one, pass slip stitch over? Any advantage or disadvantage to using one or the other? The end results are exactly the same. Once you've performed either an SSK or a slip one, knit one, pass slip stitch over, once they're completed, someone looking at it should not be able to tell which method you used. The slip one, knit one, pass slip stitch over is the traditional method of doing it. And when you slip one, you always slip it as if to knit. Barbara Walker, in her first book, First Treasury of Knitting, came out with an alternate method of doing that, and that is the SSK. Barbara Walker is the one that developed SSK, and she talks about it in that book. She looked at it and looked at it, the slip one, knit one, pass slip stitch over, and decided that if you slip one as if to knit, slip the second one as if to knit, and then knit them together through the back loop, that it produces the exact same result. And she thought that it was easier to do. It is personal preference. Which one you like to do, it does not matter. Some people think they get better results with one over the other. But in the end, they produce exactly the same thing. That's a great, great question, Migs. Let's see. And I have a video on that too. We can attach, maybe Diana Danko can mention that, and we can attach it below this video when it's been recorded onto my channel. So, Kathy Bruno, question: will you please show the bottom of your sweater in front of the camera? The bottom of my sweater looks like this. That's the bottom of the front. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. So, whoops, the quick things. Let's see. Let me see if I'm looking for questions over here. So if you have any, be sure to post them. Okay, Pat Gordon, question: can you steek without using the crochet? Yes, you can. You can just cut. You can just cut the fabric. And in the video that I have on steeking, I'm showing several different ways to reinforce the steek versus no reinforcement at all, so you can judge from those. And that video will be available by Friday. Okay. Where was that question? Okay. Oh my goodness. Fatima says in Holland it's 6 degrees centigrade. Oh my goodness. And Tremoliers had 3 degrees centigrade this morning. 42 degrees Fahrenheit in Ontario. That's pretty chilly. Okay, Champ Smith, question: amazing, but I'm a little confused because I thought you were doing an odd number steek, but it looked like there were 2 columns between your crochet reinforcements. No. So what you do, that's a great observation. You're very, very sharp. So if you have a 7 stitch steek, and this is yellow, red, the red's in the center. I crocheted the leg, one leg of the yellow to one leg of the red on both sides. So one leg yellow all the way down, combining a yellow with a red all the way down. So you're not crocheting a stitch together, you're crocheting a leg of 2 stitches together all the way down. Then you do the same thing on the other side, and that gives you the look of 2 columns, but the center between those 2 columns is the middle. It's the ditch in the center of the red stitch. Okay? I hope that helps you with that. That's very clear in the video on steeking, okay? Marlene Kern, question, what if you mistakenly snip through your reinforcement? It just happens, and it's not a horrible thing, because even without the reinforcement, it's not going to come out. So it just makes a little messy edge is what it does. I think the crochet, just that nice solid line there, is very pretty and elegant looking. Okay, you can see here where I did not have the two color steek, that the column on the inside of that crocheted edge is all yellow. But up here where I had the crocheted steek, the inside is red. It's a half and half stitch, half yellow, half red, because it's one leg of the yellow and one leg of the red, and the other leg of the red is over here on this half. So we cut right smack down through the center of the red stitch. So we've got half yellow, half red. See the red there? That's not the crochet. The crochet's over here, this solid line of crochet. Then we have the half yellow and the red sucked in to the crocheted edge, but you can see the little blips of the yellow along there, that half stitch of yellow. Okay, so Valerie Dunham says, I have come up with a possible name for us Suzanne fans. We could be the Swatchers, as in a wordplay of Suzanne Bryan Watchers. Oh, I love that. Very cool, the Swatchers. That's fun. Ann Tremelier says, not a question, but I'm so excited. I finished my itag cardigan today. Only the buttons to sew on. I love it so much. I can't wait to see it. Kathy Bruno, yes, I wanted to see the design on the pockets. Oh, let me show you these pockets. Okay, so I love my pockets. This is another video, and the video on this may not come out this week because I'm leaving on that big trip on Saturday. But this, remember, I have the stranded knitting right in the middle of my pocket, right? And there's no other red around it. So how do you do that? I used ladder back intarsia. So here's the whole inside of the pocket. You can see that part right there where the stranding is, but the rest of it is called ladder back intarsia, and it's just creating a netting. It's like double knitting, very, very thin double knitting. So I have two layers of fabric, the netting and the front of the pocket, and it's only connected in the area of the stranded knitting. But my stitches are close enough together in the netting that my fingers will not go through this. Now, some people say, well, you could just do that whole pocket front as double knitting. Yes, I could, but then it would be really thick. By doing the jacquard, the ladder back jacquard, the lining, that is much thinner. There's not near as much yarn in that as there would be in double knitting. So I used it to do this and this edge here. That's why the entire inside of this pocket, the entire inside is ladder back intarsia, so that I could do this design plus the edging over here. Okay. Pat Gordon, what size crochet needle did I use? Very small, the smallest that I could work with. I don't have the number, but it's, like bigger than what you would use with thread, but small like you would use with fingering weight yarn. Can you speak to your expectations for the garment versus the results achieved? This is Sunny Balaga from Toronto. Very chilly spring here. Question. Can you speak to your expectations for the garment versus the results achieved? The results came out exactly as I expected. Okay. It came out to fit my schematic that I did in the beginning. And I made the schematic from my body measurements. And then I used my stitch and row gauge from my swatch. This was my original swatch for this sweater. And now this is my sweater. I just have to finish the neck will be next. And then the button bands. And then I'm not going to reblock it. After I do the finishing parts, I just steam those. So I would steam the neck, steam this. Now I'm still undecided whether I'm going to put buttons on this or do a zipper. One of my friends thinks I need to do a zipper. I'm thinking about it, but I don't have to make that decision quite yet. I'm going to put the neck on first. And then, but I do want to get it done. I was thinking of wearing it on my trip, and I'm leaving Saturday. So this is Wednesday. I've got to make that decision quickly. So I really like it. It fits really good. I'm happy with it. So it exceeded my expectations because there were some points when I was very worried about it, but that's normal when we're knitting something from scratch like this. We're not following a pattern. We're making it up from the very beginning. You have in your mind, and then you have all the calculations that you've done, and I just have to trust my numbers, and usually it comes out just right. Bonnie Davis, did you single crochet or slip stitch? I slip stitch crochet. You want it to be very, very thin. I have done it before with single crochet. It leaves too thick of an edge. I want it to be very, very thin and tight. So slip stitch works really good. Jeannie Byron, how do you know how wide to make the yoke part of the sweater? Do you do the short rows while you are making the yoke? The short rows I made at the top before I started the increases. Let me take it off and show you. And the depth of the yoke is going to be based upon, I really go back to the thing of using the armhole depth, and then you could maybe add an inch, and that'll give you an idea of the depth of your yoke. The back neck, you can see where I did the short rows. These are the short rows right here. This is my first increase round. Now, some people were also worried about, when you do those increase rounds, you're going drastically changing the stitch count. But it looks okay. After it's blocked, it looks just fine. It's not a detraction from the sweater. So here's where there was an increase round. Here's the second increase round right there. And the third increase round is in this area in here within my design. And so you really don't see those. They don't stand out. It blocks in. It looks good. Great question, Jeannie. Sandra, my son said Clear Lake is close to Houston, is more humid there. The further east you go is more humid. I've been San Antonio 3 times, and so far it has been nice. And Amber says it's 64 Fahrenheit in Southwest Germany. Wheezy says zipper would be lovely. Yes, the thing is, it's such short timing between now and when I go on my trip that if I can't find a commercial zipper that's the right length, I'm going to have to order a custom-made one, and it won't be here in time. So that might be one of my deciding factors. Or maybe I just won't take my sweater on my trip and I'll finish it later. Valerie Dunham says, comment, your ball or skein of yarn should have a suggested crochet hook size on it for the yarn used. It's a good starting point for finding a workable hook. Excellent. Thank you. Good answer. Dolly Beeman, observation, using the zipper versus the colorful button bands will be one less thing the eye is drawn to. The yoke and pocket designs will stand out more. But Dolly's, I like framing my sweaters, and I think when you have a band like this and it's at the neck and coming around the front, in my opinion, it frames the work like a piece of art. So we'll see. I'll do the neck first, and then I have to make a decision. I might be able to get the neck done today. Sunny Belonga, comment, my vote goes to the zipper. It will keep all the focus on the design and provide a clean look to the finish. Thank you. So now let's go over to the questions on Ravelry. Okay. So Susan Maloney says, question, can you talk about where to start the pockets, above the waist or below the waist? That's a great question. In the directions, in the tutorial, I direct you to start them at the waist. Now, keep in mind that for a standard person, not a child, but for an adult, the pocket, the front of the pocket, the main part from here to here is 5 inches, and then you add another 2 inches. So that's 7 inches. From the start of the pocket to where you do the combining row is 7 inches. And then whatever length you want to have as your border after that. So my border is 3 inches. So that's 10 inches. So this is going to be 10 inches. So you can move it up or down however you want, knowing that it's going to be 10 inches more of sweater after this. Now you can always add more stockinette stitch after the bottom of the sweater and before the ribbing. That's perfectly okay to do that too. But in the directions, you can tell by reading the tutorial, it says knit this for 5 inches and it says knit this for 2 inches. So therefore you know this section here is 7 inches long. So you can move it up and down wherever you want it to be on your sweater, just knowing the size of it. You can draw it on your schematic. That's a great question, Susie. Thank you for asking that. Let's see the next question. This is from Nona Jones. She said, will you please tell us about your knitting trip to Ireland and Scotland? Are you going on an organized tour? If so, can you please tell us the name of the tour company? Thanks so much. We're not going on a knitting trip. We're going, a whole bunch of my knitting friends, I think there's 12 or 14 of us, are going on an organized tour. It's through Trafalgar, and it's the best of Ireland and Scotland through Trafalgar. But because we're all going and we're all knitting, we're going to look for the yarn stores and stuff like that. We're not going to be making any special trips at yarn places, although that would be fun, but we didn't plan to do that in this trip. Just getting the group of us together is like herding cats. And when it took us forever to decide on the actual trip we wanted to go on. And once we did that, we just had to go for it, and everybody put their money down, and it has worked out really good. Good question. I'd really like to take a trip to New Zealand and Australia, maybe 2 different trips because both of them would be quite big. I'd like to spend a couple weeks in each place. And this is from Katharina Knits. Hello, Suzanne. Which knitting projects are you going to take with you when traveling? Good question. I don't know yet. I have some yarn I just bought that's really pretty that would make another cute top, and I think maybe short sleeve. It's a BFL, Blue Face Leicester, a fingering weight, and the colors are really pretty. And I was thinking of doing another yoke, basically what we're just doing now, with some color work in the yoke, and it's very lightweight, and just make it short sleeve. I might take that, or I just might take some socks. I might take both. I usually overpack my knitting. I pack the knitting first before my clothes. I'm a very light packer. I just take enough clothes for a week. This is a 2-week trip, so I'll take about a week's worth of clothes, knowing that I can, wash my underwear and my socks and stuff like that, and as we go along. So I'm not a big heavy packer. David Hensley says he votes for 5 pairs of frogs as closure. Now that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. I kind of like that. I'll have to get on Amazon, see if I can get them shipped to me overnight. Okay, next questions. If you can't take metal needles on the plane, what needles do you take on a trip? That's from Demetria. On all of the trips that I've taken, I just take my regular knitting needles. I've even taken Signature Stiletto US1 needles, double point needles on a trip, flying from France to the United States. I've flown all over the place with my regular knitting needles. I've never had them confiscated from me. So I know people worry about that. I have had a pair of scissors taken one time. They were Ginger scissors. They were very short. They were less than the 2 inches, but I think that TSA agent really wanted them. And I think they use their discretion like that. Sometimes if they just see something they really want, they say, okay, you can't take that. So let's see. Pat Gordon, I vote for knitted loop button closures. That would be interesting. I could do an I-cord edging and on one side make button loops. That's very interesting. I wouldn't have to order anything. I am going to do the corrugated ribbing. Very interesting. Okay. Deborah Cisneros says, this is hilarious. I love it. Oh my goodness. She says, as a child, did you used to outline when you colored? Yes. Maybe that's why I still outline. Okay. Let me see if I missed anything. Okay. Sandra Pinkerton, question. I made a mistake in the adjustment for my arms, included ease for both arms. Stitch count was 460 versus 416. I caught the mistake before the third increase. So the third increase will be, that's fine. That's fine. That will work just fine. Just so long as you end up with the correct number of stitches. You could do just fine, and nobody will notice, and you won't even notice that this part of the yoke is so flexible. You can do that. Sharon Schaefer, question, your sweater is beautiful. Is the ribbing corrugated? Did you reduce stitches before ribbing? My ribbing is corrugated, and I did not reduce stitches. And when I blocked it out. Because, you know, corrugated ribbing doesn't really have much stretch. It's not meant to have stretch. It's not like ribbing, knit to purl to ribbing. It is just meant to keep the bottom of your sweater from curling up, to keep the fabric flat. And on the very edge, what I did to give this rounded edge is when I did my last row of corrugated ribbing, then the next row I knitted, next round I knitted a round of the yellow, then I purled 2 rounds of yellow, and then I bound off purlwise. And what that does is it gives you this little roll right on the edge. I like it. It kind of looks like an I-cord bind off. You could mistake it for an I-cord bind off, but it's much easier to do. Very cool. Okay. Yes, the TSA on, this is from Pamela Matthews, on the TSA website, right on the website, it says knitting needles are allowed. And it doesn't say just wooden needles or metal needles or whatever. It just says knitting needles are allowed. And she says, for international travel, a friend of mine takes a copy of the TSA rules or other government service that says knitting needles are okay on board. Good idea. I'll print that out. Any other questions? Now, where I'm going on my trip, let me tell you where I'm going. Oh, you want to see the scarf on, what did I name my model? I don't remember what I named her. This is a great scarf. This is so fun. This scarf, let me look up the name of it on Ravelry for you. And I'll tell you what I did here. This scarf is called Tranquilla by Kim Newhouser. Tranquilla by Kim Newhouser. And let me tell you how much it cost. It's $5. Now, it's a simple little stitch pattern. And it's very fun. It's easy to memorize. But what I did on this, I got this yarn from a local dyer, and it's called Lupins and Poppies. And where we live here in California, we have, you know, you may have heard about the super bloom that we had that you could see from space. We have a lot of wildflowers that bloom in the spring, and this year was a tremendous amount of them that bloomed. This yarn, she called it Poppies and Lupins. So it has the orange for the poppies and the purple for the lupins. And so it was a hand-dyed yarn. So what I did is I was studying pooling, purposeful pooling at the time that I knitted this. And I figured out I wanted it to get this argyling. You're going to love this one. I'll tell you in a second. I'm sitting on it. See the argyle, the purposeful argyling. And so what you do is you have to knit some rounds of use the size needle you're going to use and the stitches you're going to use, and knit until you start seeing where the pattern repeats. And you count how many stitches between the beginning and end of a repeat. And you do that like 10 times, because every time you'll get a slightly different count. So one time it might be 60 stitches between repeats, then 61, then 59, then 62, and then 60. And then you average it to where you find out what's the average number of stitches it takes to create a repeat. Now, if you develop your design with that exact number, the colors will stack on top of each other. They won't argyle. In order to make them argyle, you need to use one stitch more or one stitch less to make them argyle. There is a calculator that you can go to that was developed by, I'll think of her name in a minute. Planned Pooling. Carla Steubing is the lady's name. I took 2 classes from her, and she developed the mathematical system for it. And one of her students took her math and created a software, or not software, it's a website. It's called PLANNED POOLING.com. And he does give her credit somewhere. Let me see if I can find the credit.
Hi.
Well, there's his video. I'm sorry. I don't see where. Anyway, her name's Carla Steubing. She's from Houston, Texas, and she does a tremendous amount of work on planned pooling. Her work is unbelievably beautiful. She is an artist. But you can go to this site, check it out yourself, and you can pick the colors. So let's say you had 3 colors, the green, the orange, and the blue. You would figure out how many stitches there are in the blue, how many stitches in orange, how many stitches in green, and in the sequence, in the proper. So it might be blue, orange, green. It might be blue, orange, green. It might be blue, green, orange, green, blue, or something like that. You do the sequence, you put it in there, you fill it in, and then you can play with the stitch count and see what it's going to look like. Let me go get my iPad and I'll show you. Hold on. Let me find it on here, and then I can do a little demonstration and show you what it looks like. Let me warn you, it is addicting. Okay, this is what the website looks like. I'll get it so it's not. Come on, we're getting a reflection. I need to get the reflection off. Can you see that? So you put that's about what you see. Up at the top, there's a place for you to enter your colors. So I'm going to put some colors in here, okay? I'm going to say the purple. And that's going to be the purple is going to be for, let's say it's 20 stitches, the green. And then color number 3 is going to be, add a color. I'm going to put in orange. Okay, and we're going to put an equal number of each stitches just for the heck of it. So I put in 3 colors, and I'm saying that there's 20 stitches in each, and it repeats around the skein. And then I'm going to say that there's going to be 60 stitches in a row, and we're going to knit in the round. We're going to say 60 stitches in a round, and let's see what it looks like. So we get the stripes. They stack on top of each other. Now let's say there's 61. Remember, I have 20 of each color, so I'm just going to move it by 1 stitch. And look what happens. Now let's move it the other way. Let's say 59. It goes the other way. Now, what is a multiple of 60? Is 30, right? So what if we say 30? Let's see what that's going to look like. We get lines. Now let's do 31. Argyling. It's starting to argyle. Let's do 29. It goes the other way. And this would repeat if we had a big enough surface. So let's say that we have, let's do 75 stitches, which is also a multiple of 15 and 60. No, that doesn't look good. Let's say 45. No. So you just play, that's 45, so it doesn't look very pretty. So you just play around with it till you get a design you like. Now, putting it on paper like that is very precise. Yarn and your knitting are not that precise, so it takes lots of practice. And you can see the effects are not even throughout because, you know, when you're knitting, you might have one stitch that's a little bit bigger than another, and that will throw your whole design off. But the general effect is very pretty. So when I look at hand-dyed yarn, I look at things like this because I think it just really shows off the colors. Because if I didn't do something like this would just look like mud. When you blend green, orange, and blue together and you just knit back and forth with no plan, it just looks like mud. Okay, let's see what you had to say about this, okay? Okay, we looked at the scarf. Maple, yeah. Mabel. I called my model Mabel. I need to put a label on her. Mabel. Okay. I lost 2 pairs recently. Only wooden they allowed. So you said, Fatima, they took needles from you on the airline? Dolise Beeman, comment. I found beautiful dark red frog closures on Amazon. I saved the link if you're interested in it. Yeah, you could just text it to me, Dolise. That would be cool. Andy, question. Suzanne, in anticipation of the swatch knit along, is there a type of yarn I should purchase? I haven't decided yet. You know, I'm thinking fingering weight. Rather than me writing a tutorial that's for all yarn weights, which is what I've always done in the past, let's all work with the same, and I'll be giving you a stitch gauge to achieve this time, which will also help us learn how to achieve a specific stitch gauge, because up until now, we've been choosing our own stitch gauge. So I think that I may use fingering weight yarn. I like fingering weight yarn. And then if you want to translate it into a bulkier yarn and make bigger things, you can do that. It would be up to you to do that. And that's something we can all discuss together. Pat Valencio, I took a planned pooling class by Laura Bryant at Stitches West. It was so interesting, but also hard to follow. I will check out the website you mentioned. Thank you. Yes, I've taken that planned pooling by Laura Bryant too. In fact, I have her book on planned pooling. I have the books that are up there are the ones that I use less. Let's see where I moved her book to. I tried that. And it's just, you know, you'd have to be a machine knitter. you'd have to either be a machine or own a machine to get the results that she gets. But the concept is really, really cool. I love the concept. I love taking Laura Bryant's classes. She is awesome. If you ever get a chance to take a class from her, take it. Okay, Pamela Matthews, it says that Carla is mentioned on the About page for planpooling.com. Good. Yes, let me see About. Let me double check. That guy has to give her credit. She was, yeah, Carla Stubing, and she's from Houston. If you ever get a chance to do anything, she teaches classes sometimes. Her work is unbelievably beautiful, amazing. She is a true artist. Okay. MS Nook Chile. What? Wait, TSA is a USA agency. I live in Chile and needles are not allowed. I put my needle tips in a pencil bag when flying US airline. I put them back on after takeoff. Still can't on a Chilean. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you. Thank you. Valerie Dunham, question. I know this may have already been asked, but could you please give the general info on the swatching itag, when it starts, how much, and if there's a half price day, etc. I haven't decided yet. It's going to start in a few weeks, and I have not decided any of those details yet. I'm thinking this is, it's in formulation in my mind still, but I'm thinking that each section will be at least 4 weeks long, and it'll be section by section. So like, let's say if a section is on, let's say there's a section on stranded knitting, or a section on mosaic knitting, or a section on shadow knitting. Wouldn't that be fun? I'm thinking that there will be 5 swatches to each section. The first swatch would be a 14 by 14 swatch, and also 4 7 by 7 swatches. So what that gives you, if you want to do something with it, the first thing is you could make a pillow. You could use the 14 by 14 for the front and the 4 7 by 7s for the back. Or it could be the start of a lap blanket, or it could be parts of a top. Or it could be a cowl, or a very wide scarf. It could grow into something. It could be elements that you could put into something else. And on those 5 swatches, I can teach you different things about that stitch. For example, let's say it were stranded knitting. The 14 by 14, we could knit it in the round. It would be square, so you'd be making your increases. So you would learn increases in stranded knitting, how to make increases that go with the stranded knitting and don't detract from your design. So it would be knit in the round. And then maybe a couple of the swatches, it would be stranded knitting worked flat, which most people don't do, but it's a good thing to know. And maybe 2 of them would be worked together and steeked on the edges. So you learn steeking. So I can think of all kinds of things to throw in there to teach you about that stitch design. Let's say we're doing mosaic knitting. The big swatch could be just a big mosaic pattern, and maybe in garter stitch. The smaller swatches, maybe one of them could be mosaic stitch in all stockinette. One could be mosaic stitch in garter stitch and stockinette combination. Maybe the other 2 were reversing the colorways, or I can show you how you offset the patterns from each other. There's just so much to learn about each one. I think that each one would be its own entity, and I would charge for each one separately. I would teach you the background, the history, how you can use it, how you can do increases and decreases so you can use it in garment construction if you want, and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not sure of the price. I'm thinking like maybe $12.50. And so there would be elements. So like this summer, maybe I could do 3. And then during the winter, do the 2 garments. And then maybe next summer, do 3 more. Kind of like that, building on each other. Because there's an endless number of types of knitting that you could learn how to do in this fashion. I'm open to suggestions. And I still want to start, probably not till I get back from my vacation, because I'm getting real short on getting things done. But when I get back, we'll start some conversation on Ravelry, and I'll give a poll, and we can pick which stitch type of stitch things you want to learn, and people can vote, and that'll tell me which one to do first. Okay? So Joan Young, question. If time, please ever stop. Advise step to bind off at the shoulder seams. I do not follow instructions due to uncertainty at seaming, but might not work. I have 2 videos. I have one on stair step binding off for a shoulder seam. So there's 2 stair step swatches and how to put them together. I'm not binding off, how to seam them together. And then I have another one on converting stair step to short rows. So maybe Diana, when she is on here and gets his timestamps for this, can add that, and I can link those videos for you. I do have videos on those already. David Hensley, question. Has anyone else used Premier wool-free sock yarn? I made a pair of socks with it and have started another pair using the hat heel sock pattern from Knitty. It's very stretchy yarn. I haven't tried that. What's the composition of it? What's it made out of? Okay, and then Bonnie Davis says, comment, I love how you put your classes together. Each project class teaches such in-depth info. That's how I like to teach. I can't teach any other way. It's just how I am. You get way more than what you ask for sometimes, but I think that attracts a certain type of people that want to learn more in-depth things in knitting. So I think that I've covered everything for today. I won't be back here until after May 20th. Let's look at the calendar. We can set a date, okay? May 20th is when I get back, the 21st. So the next time that I will see you is May 25th. That's a Saturday. May 25th at 2 o'clock for a live stream. We may stop the Wednesdays for a while until we actually start another knit along, so people need to get their questions answered on a more timely basis. But we'll just kind of go with the flow. You know, let me tell you where I'm going to be. I was going to tell you that. Let's see, for my little trip planner, we're going to go to Dublin. I think we're there for a couple of days. And then we go to the Dublin City sightseeing. Then we go to the Fitzwilton Hotel on Wednesday, and Waterford Crystal Tour, the Blarney Castle, Ring of Kerry, Adair Galway and Innisgrown, Donegal and Londonderry, Giant's Causeway, Glasgow City Tour, Isle of Skye, Glencoe, Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands, Pitlochry, St. Andrews, Edinburgh, and then home. So I think it's going to be fun. So anyway, I will miss you all, but I'll think about you. I hope you work on your cardigans, post your pictures on Ravelry and Facebook, invite your friends to watch my videos, and to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. And I'll see you next time, and happy knitting.